Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and I'm having a conversation with Younis Hijazi, who's coming from Luxembourg. At least that's where he's located. I think we're going to find out more about his background and also his education journey. I've seen on his LinkedIn that he spent some time at University of California, Davis, which is not far from where I used to call home. So we're going to get into lots of different topics, I hope. Younis and I know each other from the Open EXO community, so the Exponential Organizations community of thinkers, doers, and entrepreneurs around the world. And so we'll touch on that a little bit as well. Younis, thanks for joining. Can you share with us, what is it that you do and why are you doing what you do?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for the invite. So what I'm doing, I started 2 years ago with my consulting company, and I have also a continuous freelance activity with consulting in EU proposal writing, because that's one of my expertise that I developed in the past years on knowing how the EU funding works and how to put up a proposal and so how to tap into this abundant and that complex world of EU funding. And so my MTP, my massive transformative purpose, if we relate to the language of EXO, is to transform governments, make them future ready so that we can impact positively the lives of billions of citizens. So that's my personal so beyond the mission purpose. And I'm still developing now in this. I'm not even at 2 years of my own company now, but so I'm still learning. And I focus at the moment on seeing how it works with corporates, with the private sector. And now I'm shifting slowly to the public sector, because that's also where I had experience as an employee at the innovation agency, working also with the EU institutions. So I want to combine my experience from the inside, first the consulting experience with the private sector, to now apply it to the public sector, to help transforming governments, chambers of commerce, innovation agencies, all this ecosystem from the public sector that I think is not targeted enough by the coaches and consultants at the moment. It's the focus is a lot on the private sector.
And Younis, why? Meaning to have, and this is what I love about the Open EXO community, is people have such audacious goals and just, I love it. And what drives you to want to work with, the public sector to improve the lives of 1 billion people or more? That's a large number. There needs, what's behind that?
So when I joined Singularity University in 2017, I already heard about it a few years back, and it was clearly like this 10x approach and how to impact billions of people. And Peter Diamandis is saying that if you want to become a billionaire, just think about how to impact positively 1 billion people. So this exponential thinking and 10x got to me. And I was working with the EU institutions, going to regular meetings, events, the European Parliament, with the European Commission, and all these discussions, endless discussions about AI and all these things. But I figured that first they could benefit from, if such organizations as the EU institutions or national governments would be more agile, they could really, there is so much loss, there is so much room for improvement. So I was convinced that there needs to be some these ideas that are injected more and more now with C-levels, with CEOs and board members to know, to define their own purpose and to know where they want to be in 10 years. So it's great because they will have more revenue, they will be better positioned versus the competition. So the impact is clear for the private sector. It's mostly financial, but if you help those organizations, the international, national, EU level, become more agile thanks to these new tools that have been developed, for example, with EXO, the impact can be huge and can be visible by any person, any citizen. There was already, if you look at the roaming, the initiatives that the Commission did a few years back with the roaming in the EU, that you can use you have a harmonization of your data plan with 4G, 5G, and so on, and you can just use it from one country to another. That was a direct impact on citizens, and citizens usually don't understand what is happening in this EU bubble and all those decisions. But that was concrete. So I was really happy to see that when I talk with people, I say, "Oh, you see this initiative. This is part of the digital agenda of the European Commission. So this is concrete." So I'd like more, like a more direct link between the citizens and the EU institutions. So they need to understand what are the concerns of the citizens, and not just by doing those surveys that are being done. And I don't think it's the best way to do it. So they have been thinking of new ways of collecting feedback, and there are many tools for doing that. They're much more efficient than just surveys. And also that the people can really see like what is happening, having more transparency about the initiatives and being more like an actor of this transformation, and not just passively getting the decisions made above us. So having really a tighter connection between citizens and whatever body is making decisions at the regional or national, international level.
And Younis, how could EXO contribute to that, in your opinion? Maybe a first place to start is, I'm really curious if you were to introduce EXO to people who didn't know, and you just give me a 2-minute explanation of exponential organizations. Start with that, and then we'll come back to how would you apply that to government. Yeah,
the first thing with an exponential organization in EXO is what is the purpose of the organization, and the massive transformative purpose, the MTP. And I think for government it's very important, because the why, and what's your differentiator, because you could have like a country where you have lots of beaches and now people can work remotely. So maybe you want to highlight that, like some countries did that, and they were trying to attract people to move to this nice location where you can have all the infrastructure, the nice weather. Because if you can work from anywhere, why stay in places where the weather is bad? And so you're looking at really more like a holistic approach now, how to attract people. For Lebanon, for example, we are working on a project with a few people from EXO to see how we can transform Lebanon. One suggestion I made, so it's not a real MTP, but Lebanon could be the most welcoming country on earth. So because there is the culture of generosity, and also in the Arab culture, this is something that always, like when I was as a kid in Lebanon, always you go somewhere, you're received like a king, and people are very open. It's very important in the Lebanese culture to be generous and to be welcoming. And so having differentiators like that as a very simple way, it's not like a marketing slogan. It's really something very powerful that creates a community around it. And like the Lebanese cuisine, for example, it relates also to the welcoming keyword. So it's important, I think, for governments to think, okay, where do they want to go? They are here today, but where do they want to go? If you look at the World Happiness Report, and there are many indicators, you can see like the happiest country, or the most open country to welcome people from abroad. So it's really important to think about this, I think, for a country as well as for companies. For a company, it creates a culture. For a country, it sets the tone, like where do you want to go? And then you need to align all the layers below that to make sure that the bus driver is very welcoming with the tourists. And so it needs to go top down, really. From if this is where you want to go, you need to align then all the gives you a clear, like what I call a North Star. Like it's sometimes easier to remember a clear direction. And then if you look at each of the attributes of EXO, so for me, an EXO is really how do you move from scarcity to abundance. So that's the best explanation that with all the content that you can find about exponential organization. You take Kodak, you have a scarce model with a limited number of pictures, and you move to Instagram, where suddenly you have an abundance of content and people sharing it. So you have an abundance on your phone, and then you connect globally with billions of people sharing things. And there are so many new business models today that came out of this abundant world, that you have people living from social media. And this was out of the question at the time of scarcity, where you had a limited number of photos on items that were disconnected, that were not connected to the internet. So that's really the shift from scarcity to abundance. And I really believe in we can leverage the abundance that I want to leverage with governments. This is clearly the citizens. The citizens, as a citizen, you're a citizen of a city, of a region, of a country. If it's part of the EU, then you're supposed to know a little bit about what's happening at the EU. But many people just ignore it because it's too complex. It takes too much time to dig into it. And also international organizations making decisions that could impact you. So the idea is really to tap into the abundance of citizens that collectively can act in the transformation.
Great. I love the applicability. And for people listening, if you're not familiar with this, you can get the Exponential Organizations book. So on the show notes of Younis's episode, we will put a link to the Open EXO series, and in there you can find information about the book. Also, you can go to openexo.com, and there they have a free course about EXO foundations. And if you want a certificate, I think there's a small fee now to sort of get the paperwork, which is kind of fun, maybe to have on your LinkedIn. And they have a whole series of certifications around different consulting and sprint coaches and things like that. So, Younis, the principles of scarcity versus abundance, it seems like, but you're closer to, governments and public bodies than I have, is a lot of these governments are based on the principle of scarcity, meaning us and them, and keep our good stuff for us and not them. So this is not only a technological shift, but it's very much a mindset shift as well. Do you see that shift happening already, or is this possible?
So I've studied lots of models. So if I look at each of the attributes, so I can see that, for example, if I take the first external attribute, staff on demand, some organizations use staff on demand, but most of the places, if I look at the way the European Commission works, or the Innovation Agency, or the Ministry of the Economy in Luxembourg or in other countries, you have this notion of lifetime jobs, or like fixed jobs, and it's not really with a variable geometry where you can, if you need a project now to put more emphasis on AI or cross-sectoral teams, that you can build a team on the fly and also have some fresh thinking, some people from outside the organization. So that's something that I'm used to now in my all the work that I do. You have a project, you have colleagues that are like it can be the client, it can be some external consultants, but you just work on a project. You define who are the best people to work on this project. So you just tap into the abundance of all these experts globally. So I think knowing that the smartest people do not work for you, if you can just, by understanding this statement and activate those people, so creating a platform or using a platform of stuff on demand, like Kaggle for data scientists. That's the example I give for in the TEDx on future ready government. So really like doesn't make really sense to say 10x government. So it's really to become more agile, more prepared for the future. And yeah, using platforms like that or building new platforms where you can have more agility. So like the cloud, you need to activate for the crisis, you need more admin people who have admin skills who will help you to sort all the applications. And so you need maybe 10x more workforce for 6 months because of a crisis situation. So you can just tap into this abundant network. So I can see some examples for each of the attributes, like dashboards are used by cities. We can see that also there is in some countries they are keen on experimentation. The UK or the Nordics are also keen on experimentation. Some countries also acknowledge that with the workforce retiring, it's good to have younger people working for the government, to even try to make it sexy to work for a government. So there are some initiatives, but it's very, as I see it, there is like no master plan it's always just one component. It's not like a master plan to become future ready. And you can see lots of things, how to use more algorithms for governments, how to use AI to have like a first filter, or to use some AI companions, very smart companions that can already guide you through the complexity. So you don't need to go to the website to all the things. You just ask the question and you have a natural interaction with an AI. And then later on, you can, once you have passed the different filters, you can interact with a human if needed. But there is so much you can do by using the same techniques that companies like the companies that have a very high exponential score, like Google, Amazon, and all that. You can apply the same things for governments, but in a systemic approach.
And you have been on TEDx, sharing some of your vision and thoughts on this. Yes. We'll put a link to that TEDx video. Is this touching on some of that, making governance future ready? Is this part of the same theme and spirit? Exactly.
So it's really I explained the different ingredients to become a future ready government. It's really taking the EXO model and applying it to the public sector. And also I give one concrete example of Lebanon. So there is a general framework, but also I zoom in Lebanon, because that's at the moment that's what I'm really concerned about. It's a country like where I'm based here in Luxembourg. They are doing well. They have good governance. They are stable. So there is no urgency of transforming. You can always do better, of course. You can always have better. You can improve the agility, but I think there is an urgency in certain countries, and I decided to focus on Lebanon at the moment to see how we can build a digital infrastructure, so that so we're thinking of using the Tezos blockchain to provide a system of payment for SMEs in Lebanon that are stuck at the moment with the current rules. We are also thinking of doing an EXO sprint with one company just to get started and see if, depending on the response. So we are also experimenting. We are applying our own attributes. We're not coming with like a plan for 10 years, and we're just in the action. So we're just deciding, okay, those are the 2 projects we want to focus on. And once we have enough good results, we share it, and we will try to scale up the initiatives that have worked, and the ones that haven't worked, we will learn from the mistakes or from the implementation, and we'll do better next time. So we are also constantly experimenting. And one of the elements that came out of what people really enjoyed, the analogy, if you take one exponential organization from the private sector, which is Airbnb, and you take an exponential, like a future-ready government, you could imagine that you have super citizens, the same way you have super hosts. So you can like citizens with superpowers of connecting people, of aggregating feedback and being influencers for the good of the area. So it could be just a quarter, a village, a city, and so you can empower citizens. But for that, you need really to have a discussion, and the platform needs to be built, co-designed together with people from the city, from the region, from the country, and with the citizens, so that it's as easy as, for example, using your phone for booking on Airbnb or ordering an Uber. It has to be simple. If at the moment, if you want to be an actor of change in your area, even just adding speed bumps, or it takes a lot of energy. There is lots of resistance at all levels, and it should become easier for people to structure around certain ideas, certain initiatives, and they could be also rewarded with a token that could be a local token that could also nurture back the local economy. So you could create these incentives with some gamification, and you can have like the leadership, the board with the points and the tokens, and people can use those tokens for themselves, but also maybe to throw a party with with other people whenever this will be possible, or at least a virtual party for now. But the idea of really empowering people and giving them the tools, I think this is important. At the moment, it's too complex. When you go on certain websites of a city, it's you have nothing, or it's really complicated to just find the information you're looking for. So you need to spend lots of time today, and this should be super, super easy if you want it to work.
Again, it comes back for me to the mindset, because traditionally governments who essentially have a monopoly and therefore are not really interested in ease of use or user experience, or even citizen experience. I think that could be definitely a thing. But over time, I think there's probably some bigger themes going on in society worldwide, meaning the question around the need for nation states, even as entities. I think that's not going to happen anytime soon, but as we become more and more globalized, and as the reality of the abundance of so much, as far as energy, food, labor, it's not a shortage of these things. It's actually a distribution of these things that are kind of our problems. And what I hear more and more is that nation states are becoming more the problem rather than the solution. So what I like about what I'm hearing here is this actually, it starts to flip the narrative and say, well, actually, this is how these governments, these nation states, these regions could refocus on that purpose, reconnect and re-energize, and then increase their performance and whatever it is, however they mention their performance. So what do you see in really sort of geopolitical changes that might be driving some of this as well?
So clearly, if you look at and that's what the analogy I make in the TEDx is, a company has customers, they want to make them happy, but to keep them happy over time. And if you change suddenly your privacy policy, like WhatsApp did, Facebook did, you come into problems, and people can just decide to use another solution, because we have an abundance also of options, and suddenly people move to Telegram and Signal and other solutions. And the same way, a government has citizens that pay the taxes. The whole system is based on the taxes, all kinds of taxes. So if you lose your citizens because they're not happy with the way, for example, you manage COVID, and they decide, okay, I don't want to be in prison now, being imprisoned in my home for 2 years. 1 year has been enough, and now I will go to another place. So maybe there will be a transition where they continue to pay certain taxes, and they experiment, and they go to other places. But if I'm not happy, I mean, people have the choice. If they're not happy with the situation, if you're not happy with the service from a company, you're free as an individual or a business to just change and go to another competitor. The same way, citizens today, we are in a free world, in a free society in most parts of the world where people can decide, okay, I want to just go to a place where I with the euro, I will be rich. I can move to Thailand and I can have a better quality of life and I can work remotely. So everything becomes possible now because if you can start working remotely and also with people who invested in cryptos and are seeing that on their account it's like 10x, 20x, and they don't need to work for anymore on the short term at least. It's so everything is shifted. So I think it's really I believe that on the very long term, this artificial boundaries that we have with the countries and all this will go more to a distributed network. So everything will shift to a distributed structure. So at the moment we have this fixed, very rigid structures. So on the long term, it will move to more like hubs. So we'll have cities, communities that will emerge and that will be self-sufficient on the energy, food, and all that. So we'll be less dependent from the others. But we're not there yet, but there are lots of pilots happening. And the future ready government is taking the current system and of boundaries, of geographic boundaries, and helping the existing structures the same way as existing companies that are centralized to become more efficient not to earn more money, but to make better choices because they have the public sector has a limited starts with a certain amount of money and has to make decisions and has to prioritize. And so it's not the same as starting from nothing and creating value when you're on the private sector. So you're spending money, but you need to make the wise decisions. And if you don't, if you make lots of mistakes as a government, the risk is that the citizens will just decide to temporarily and maybe permanently just move to some other more welcoming place because the weather is better, because maybe it's more stable or more fun, or it really depends on what you have to offer. So what does a country have to offer? I mean, I'm not in Luxembourg because of the nice weather. Sometimes you have the sun and sometimes it's pleasant. But I would rather be in California or Central America or Thailand. So I think we are in a transition phase at the moment. But I don't see systemic transformations really like from the head, from the head of the country, really the systemic approach on transformation. I don't see it. I see only pieces, like how do we take AI and implement it, or can we activate for certain tasks stuff on demand. But I don't see really this overall approach to do it systematically on all the dimensions that you can do it.
Yeah, I'm forever an optimist, and I see these things happening, and I imagine this is a bit of kind of like digital transformation. It's inevitable. It's just a matter of the speed in which it will impact, people and the businesses they work in. In the last couple of minutes, let's take it from the long term really to the short term. And if there are policymakers or public officials that are triggered or intrigued and would like some acceleration of their capabilities, by adopting some exponential technologies or the exponential mindset, or just in general, some of your vision around that, which these are, I guess, sort of component parts of it. How would someone start? So if there's a, I don't know, somebody in government that has some authority that's saying, hey, I want to do something different. I want to do something different on Monday. How could they start that, and how could you help them?
I think the best approach is to break the silos that you have in governments. You have lots of departments or let's say ministries, or depending on how it's organized, that do not communicate a lot. So I've seen that in the past years that there are more and more task forces. So we're getting there. But the best way we do it with companies, and I think it applies directly to governments, is to do a sprint. So it's a 10-week sprint where you break all the silos. You create teams with people from different departments, ministries, and you really break the silos, and it helps changing the DNA of the organization. And the immune system is very, very, very high in the public sector if you have all these layers. So having hope by doing such a transformation program, so you have a 10-week sprint, or it could be a bit longer for governments. So there have been with a Fast Track Institute different projects which are 16 weeks for cities. But let's say if you take this 10-week and you say in a few weeks, a few months, we change, we transform the culture, the DNA of the organization, and you show another way of working, which is actually much more it's project based. So you're trying to find to solve a problem. So you build a team of people from inside, but also you bring experts from the outside. And this way of working will already put in motion experimentation, stuff on demand. So already a few attributes. I think that's the best. And if people are not willing to, they find it too risky to sign for a few multi-month project, they can just go like for 1 or 2 day workshop where they get a taste and some first initiatives that can come out of that. And I think in those projects, it's important also to involve citizens, of course. So if you're trying to solve a problem that involves citizens, so you need the end user in the discussion, and you can use all kinds of tools to have access. So few representatives to participate, and then leverage some platforms to have this collective intelligence. So, but citizens also need something in return. And if you just give your time when you get surveys, it's not enough. So you need to think of how to do it in a smart way so that people are engaged, and to keep not only having them engaged, but keep them engaged.
Cool. Younis, thank you so much. We need to wrap up. That's Younis Hijazi, and you can find Younis on LinkedIn. He has a glorious network, including myself and also many other people in the OpenEXO community. So when you work with Younis for a 10-week sprint or a workshop, there's a lot of people and capabilities that he can draw from to create a very, very rich experience, which is really, really fun to be part of. I believe in where this is going, because I think that humanity is shifting its mindset from more scarcity to abundant, and that will derive some of these changes. And if there's some policymakers or government officials who want some structure and some support in that, then we have definitely some vision and some ideas here. So Younis, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player, and download the Simplicity Kit from ebullient.com.